Hey, thanks for making it to Veterans Info Tap. I'm glad you made it. Wanted to talk to you about two pieces of legislation that are introduced this year. Some have been introduced in the past that are calling for a higher calculation for COLA. I did a video on one of these in the past, and I'm doing this video now because I got some more information here and I wanted to share it with you. This video is going to be a little bit longer, potentially, I'm guessing. I don't know. It's kind of hard to tell right now at 30 seconds. But the Senior Citizens League supports the usage of CPIE as opposed to the CPIW, which is currently used to calculate COLA. And the two pieces of legislation, one is on the Senate side, and that is the Social Security Expansion Act, has a COLA adjustment inside of it, and I'll just try to kind of hone in on that piece. And then on the House side, we have the Fair COLA for Seniors Act. Now, both of these pieces of legislation that, again, were introduced this year, both call for the utilization of the CPIE. The E stands for elderly, so it's a more focused indice. It's a smaller pool that they use, but it would equate to a higher COLA for Social Security and by default veterans. So when we're looking to get pay increases annually due to the cost of living, for both Social Security benefits and Veterans Affairs benefits, this is a way to do it. Now, it doesn't have to be this way, but just the fact that there are two pieces of running legislation out there, if there's not enough of the public banging their fist on the table saying yes to it specifically, or yes, but this way, then they'll go nowhere, right? So we need to make a little noise. If you believe, which I've seen in the comments, I think everybody believes that COLA is not high enough. It does not match with the true inflation numbers. The Senior Citizens League is completely opposed to the way that COLA has been calculated, and they've stated multiple occasions that it's just every year the recipients of Social Security fall further and further behind due to the lack of honestly a correct way to calculate a true number for COLA to combat inflation dollar for dollar. So with that, I'm going to jump into a quick statement. It's 4 paragraphs, it's 4 paragraphs from the Senior Citizens League to kind of set the stage. Then I'm going to jump into the two pieces of legislation and go from there for you. So hit the thumbs up, subscribe, share with a friend, all that good stuff. I really appreciate it. Really helps get the word out. And quite honestly, the more that this expands, the more potential of different congressional members catching wind of support as well, which is also important. If you're not a member, consider joining. It does help out the channel a lot, and it helps me to find you guys in the comments. So jumping into it, the Senior Citizens League, I found this piece here from the Senior Citizens League on their website specifically, and it states here, cost of living adjustment. Then it states, according to the Senior Citizens League research, Social Security benefits have lost over 30% of their purchasing power since 2000, due in large part to inadequate COLAs and rising healthcare costs. To address the growing issue, the Senior Citizens League urges Congress to adopt legislation that would base the COLA on an inflation index specifically for seniors, like the Consumer Price Index for the elderly, CPIE. The index that is currently used to measure inflation, the Consumer Price Index for urban wage earners, which is the CPIW, underestimates the inflation that Social Security beneficiaries experience, since it does not give much weight to expenses like healthcare or housing costs. The CPIE regularly puts the spending inflation for seniors at 0.2 of a percentage point higher than the rate at which the CPIW increases. So what that's saying there is you're looking at about almost 0.25% higher COLA if you were to utilize CPIE. That means that may seem like an insignificant amount, but over a 25-year retirement, COLAs do compound significantly. So remember that you would be increasing percentages of last percentages increased, right? So it's a snowball effect. It's really a big thing. So let's see. Moving on here. I hit my keyboard. All right. So COLAs do compound significantly. We estimate that a senior who filed for Social Security with the average benefit over 30 years ago would have received nearly $14,000 more in retirement if the CPIE had been used. Last paragraph here, the Senior Citizens League supports legislation like the CPIE Act, which is an older act, the Guaranteed 3% COLA Act, the Senior Security Act, and several other bills that would better protect the purchasing power of Social Security benefits. The Social Security League also supports legislation that would give beneficiaries a modest boost in benefits to help compensate for years of excessively low COLAs. Now, I don't know what year this came out. I want to say it was in 2020 or somewhere around there, but their views have not changed, the Senior Citizens League. And it just gives a good kind of overview on the stance of a group that specifically looks at COLAs and Social Security, and we can translate that into veterans benefits. Now, the acts and the different pieces of legislation that were talked about, I don't believe are in process today. At least I didn't see any of them. So again, I mentioned the two, the one on the Senate side and the one on the House side here at the beginning. So jumping into the House legislation, Garamendi reintroduces, so he had it last year, he reintroduced it, the Fair COLA for Seniors Act. Fair COLA for Seniors Act. Now, by default, right, if Social Security benefits get a COLA of X, then veterans get a COLA to match, right? So anything that we're talking about with regard to COLA is typically and specifically usually guided toward Social Security. So anyway, jumping into it, today, which is back then, this is back in February, Congressman John Garamendi introduced the Fair COLA for Seniors Act of 2023. This is H.R. Bill 716, H.R. 716. This bill would require Social Security to use the Consumer Price Index for elderly, CPIE, to calculate a fairer cost of living adjustment, COLA, for seniors. The bill would increase benefits and ensure that cost of living adjustments in Social Security reflect the real rising costs for seniors and disabled Americans, veterans, right? So it has a list here of original co-sponsors and then some quotations as well. I'm gonna skip all the co-sponsors and just go to some of these quotations because there's sometimes you can dig a little bit out of those quotes. So seniors and disabled citizens rely on Social Security benefits for a large portion of their income, and it's about time for Social Security benefits to reflect their lifestyles. Using a COLA that actually reflects how retirees spend their money, especially in healthcare, is a no-brainer that will increase benefits and make Social Security work better for the people it serves. The legislation has already earned broad support with 19 original co-sponsors, and I don't know how. This is probably pretty dated. I want to say that this actual statement is from February. So, with the 19 original co-sponsors and the key support from leading advocacy groups and labor organizations, there's one more quote here that I'll read to you. Then we'll move over to the Senate piece of legislation that also calls for the CPIE. So this last quote here, Social Security Works, which is an organization, applauds Representative Garamendi, for championing Social Security and sponsoring the Fair COLA for Seniors Act of 2023, said Nancy Altman, president of Social Security Works. One of the most valuable features of Social Security is its inflation protection. However, the current method of calculating inflation undermeasures the cost of living of seniors and people with disabilities who are disproportionately burdened by the rising cost of prescription drugs and other essential medical care. By more accurately accounting for the cost faced by Social Security beneficiaries, this legislation better prevents the erosion over time of Social Security's modest but vital earned benefits. And so again, that is the Fair COLA for Seniors Act, which is HR 716. All right, so now moving over to the Senate bill or legislation. This is the Social Security Expansion Act. Social Security Expansion Act. Now, there's a lot of different things in this act. It states here the bill proposed this week, which was back again in February, proposed this week, aims to make Social Security solvent for 75 years and to increase benefits, especially for lower income workers and retirees. So from what I can recall, because I don't really want to read through all of it, what happens here is when you earn a certain amount of income, and I want to say it's around $160,000 a year. Okay, so up to $160,000 a year, you pay into Social Security out of every one of your, if you're a W-2 employee, right? You're paying out of every check, part of your taxes. So you're paying towards your Social Security up to $160,000 of income. Once you get over that hump of 160 for the year, let's say you make, $320,000 in a year. If you make $320 in a year, well, for the first 6 months, you pay into Social Security. The next 6 months, you do not. You do not pay into Social Security anymore. You get a small bump basically back into your paycheck. Your net amount of income goes up because now you don't pay into Social Security. For some weird reason, and I've never understood why, I've wondered about this ever since, probably 2020, maybe somewhere around there is when I first started really thinking about this Social Security piece of the pie. So it's always been that way. And back then, and it goes up a little bit each year. So back in back in 2020, it may have been, $90,000 a year or something like that. Once you got over 90,000, you stopped paying. And then every year it goes up, a few $1,000s as far as your kind of ceiling is concerned for paying into Social Security. So, all this talk about the Social Security, going broke and all that, I've always wondered why they didn't just eliminate the cap and just everybody just pays into it. And maybe instead of, maybe you just get a little bit less if you're, believe me, if you're earning $500,000 a year or more, you're probably not relying that heavily on, oh boy, I hope I get my Social Security because that's the most important. No, you probably have other investments, and you probably maybe you have a couple homes, maybe you have rental properties, that type of stuff. So you're a little more diversified than, say, your person who's worked 50 years and their top income was $47,000, right? So anyway, the bill would this bill, right, the bill Social Security Expansion Act, would address that. It says here the bill would also make income greater than $250,000 subject to full Social Security payroll tax, which is kind of what I just talked about. Income greater than $160,000 is not subject to the full payroll tax under the bill. Income between $160,000 and $250,000 would not be taxed differently at first, but the $160,000 threshold would be allowed to rise normally until it reaches $250,000, projected to happen in 2035. So it looks like they're giving a little bit in this bill, a little bit of leniency for the income earners that are barely getting over the threshold, and then up to the $250,000 mark. And then once you get to that $250,000 mark, then they jump back into it. But I wanted to get to the portion on CPE of this bill. So there's a lot of moving pieces in this bill, but the bottom line is there is conversation in it regarding increasing the COLA. So here it says, Goss report explained that the bill, which is, I'm on plansponsor.com, and I'm not sure what Goss is. Stephen Goss. Stephen Goss is the chief actuary at the Social Security Administration. So Goss report explained that the bill would change the cost of living index used to calculate the Social Security benefit increase from the CPI index, the Consumer Price Index for urban wage earners and clerical workers, the CPIW, to the Consumer Price Index for the elderly, CPIE. The report, again, coming from the Social Security Administration, estimated that the cost of living adjustment would increase by 0.2%, 0.2 percentage points per year on average as a result. So some years it's a 0.25% or a 0.3, some years it's a 0.15, right, or whatever. So it says here, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the CPIE is a statistic which weighs inflation to account for the spending patterns of those aged 62 and older. And I will tell you, as you all know, the military's like dog years. You know, you put in a few years, but it's like, 10 years, on your body and what have you. So a 42-year-old out of the military is like a 62-year-old, for example. Patterns of those age 62 and older, such as their higher proportional spending on healthcare. The Bureau warned that this statistic has certain limitations, such as a smaller sample population, and currently has no official usage. According to a fact sheet for the bill, it would also increase the special minimum benefit to 125% of the poverty line, or over $18,000 for a single worker who had worked their full career. So that, let's see. Okay, that's going to go ahead and conclude it. That's the part that I really wanted to point out on that piece of legislation, which again is the Social Security Expansion Act. And I'm not sure how easy it would be for me to find the bill number. Let's see, I don't know if it's on here. Let me just take a quick look. I don't see the bill number. But the Social Security Expansion Act is what it's called. And what you could do if you're supporting a higher COLA through the means of CPIE, you need to support it on the House side. And you could reach out to your state senators and let them know that you support the CPI provision for COLA within the Social Security Expansion Act. If you don't agree, read through the whole thing. If you don't agree with the whole thing, then just point to the piece you agree to and say, I would like to see a separate bill on that alone to mirror the House side. I'm a fan of keeping things simple. So the Social Security Expansion Act is about many things, not just COLA. But let's put it into reality here. If we want an increase in COLA, it's going to pay out more in benefits, which means then Social Security has even bigger problems because now you're spending more money. So you do need to figure out how to fix the cloud of a problem over Social Security solvency issues. So there is that. But CPIE is getting some traction, and wanted to throw it out there to you guys so you are aware of these two bills that call for CPIE to be used and the endorsement from the Senior Citizens League. So with that, thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate you. Have a great one, and remember, if we don't take care of each other, something went wrong.